Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It is a lovely day and hopefully going to get some outdoor work done in the garden. It has been crazy windy the last few days, but I think today we're not going to have too much wind to deal with, which I don't know. It's sometimes the strong gusty winds, it makes things difficult depending on what you're doing. So hopefully we can get some things accomplished, because after today it looks like several days of at least chances of rain in the forecast for the next week or so. So we're trying to push to get a lot done today. Yesterday afternoon, if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to go watch it. Did a interview with Dr. Ron Paul. It was a kind of the highlight of this channel for me. I have met him in the past and talked to him a few times in the past, but haven't been in contact with him for years, and was able to kind of reconnect and have him on the show yesterday. And so it was a big pleasure and honor to have him, and I think it went really well. It was more of instead of us talking about all the technical stuff going on, it was really more of where we need to be going as a people. To try to move away from all of this wickedness and this collapse and this falling apart that we're seeing around us. Speaking of falling apart, Russia is reporting this morning that the Kremlin, that's right, the Kremlin was attacked by a couple of drones out of Ukraine. Now, there's so far not a lot of details on this. I highly doubt that these drones were launched from Ukraine into Russia, because that's pretty good distance. I believe, if my memory is correct, that's like 1,000 kilometers. So probably too long for most drones, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. But they're claiming that these were Ukrainian drones that were used to attack the Kremlin. And Russia is saying that they are looking at this as an assassination attempt on Putin's life. Now, also, they haven't said that he was actually in that building, and I kind of doubt that he probably was. A lot of the intel coming out is that Putin hasn't been staying there too much. He's been, underground and other places. But nevertheless, that is the claim. And if there's any truth to it at all, and honestly, it doesn't even matter if there's truth to it, if that's what Russia is saying, I would suspect that that's a pretty big escalation. I think that's a pretty big deal. Just imagine the United States if we were involved in some kind of thing, or let's just go back to when we were in Afghanistan or Iraq. And then Afghanistan or Iraq makes a drone attack on our Capitol or our White House. That would be a big deal, and we would respond, I would say, quite dramatically. So it'd be interesting to see how this all pans out. This could be a major trigger point for a big escalation, regardless of whether it really is what Russia says it is or not. And it could be added to the fact that Ukraine just recently bombed a major oil depot in Crimea that the Russian military uses. This could kind of cause things to ramp up. And there has been an increased use of rockets and missiles and stuff over in Ukraine from Russia to Ukraine. But this is a big deal. If there's any truth at all to it, it's a pretty big deal. So we could see some major escalations coming out then. I mean, to be honest with you, it's kind of surprising that there hasn't been something bigger. It just kind of seems to be going along at a pretty, moderate pace. And maybe Russia is holding back because they're waiting for China to get itself in a position that it wants to be with Taiwan. I don't really know. But this just has to be something a little bit more major than they're telling. Iran has once again seized another oil tanker. Now, this happened just the other day where they seized an oil tanker that was headed to the Texas coast. And then, of course, we seized one of their oil tankers. But we're seeing escalations there. Iran has really they've really stepped it up when it comes to not just their aggressiveness, but their ability to build a lot. I saw a report the other day that, again, who knows if it's true or not, but Iran was touting that a very large percentage of the weapons that they use, they build themselves. That they're kind of floating to the top when it comes to their ability to create weapons technology, and apparently some of it's pretty good. So Iran is kind of getting itself ready, it seems, to be a dominant force in the Middle East, especially now that it is working out peace deals between itself and Saudi Arabia. It's very possible that Iran is going to rise to the top in the Middle East, and that's going to put the United States and Israel into a pretty dangerous position. So who knows? I did see another thing that the month of April saw about 115% increase in Chinese incursions into the Taiwan defense zone. So we're seeing an ever-increasing presence over there, where China is sending planes and ships in and around Taiwan. And, China says itself that they're preparing for an invasion. I mean, that's what Taiwan says it. Taiwan and China both are saying that that's what's going to happen, that China is going to invade Taiwan to try to take it back. The United States, we've kind of admitted that we know that that's going to happen officially. And we've been basically saying that we would be physically involved. There's been reports that the United States' troops would be involved in that defense of Taiwan. You all know that. The stuff with the banking has been increasing quite a bit. And I think everyone's attention over the last month or two has been on the banking, the financial, the U.S. dollar, the de-dollarization, things like that. But we're still seeing increase in progress towards a status that would put us pretty much in World War III. And we can't ever forget that, at least as long as this is all playing out. When you have these superpowers that are trying to establish or to hold on to global dominance, at some point, there's probably going to be a physical conflict between them. I don't know that there's ever been a time in history that a rising superpower has taken over this, setting superpower without conflict, without a war. But I would say that if it's ever happened, it's extremely rare. So what does that mean? That means that, well, at some point we're going to be at war with China. We're already at war with Russia, whether we want to admit it or not. This is a major proxy war. We're also in a proxy war with Russia down in Sudan. And so we're going to continue that, I would say, and then get involved somehow with China in Taiwan. Maybe even North Korea, because we're just kind of poking around there constantly. We've got a nuclear sub headed for South Korea to sit there in their docks. But I did see that it was interesting that South Korea is also considering using less U.S. dollars. They are promoting using regional dollars, regional currencies for regional trade, which is a move away from the U.S. dollar. So even our allies are, just like with France, are starting to see the weakness of the U.S. dollar, and are trying to build something ahead of time so that they don't go down when the U.S. dollar goes down. But when it comes to war, yeah, I think it's going to happen. I don't know how it's not going to happen at this point, at this late stage in the game. Now, I think with a lot of people, it's not if, it's when. When is it going to happen? And according to the Pentagon experts and stuff, they're talking about things, 5 years out, 7 years out, maybe 3 years out, which is a possibility. But would it happen sooner? Yeah, I think it could. I think it definitely could, and I think it will. I would be surprised if there's not some level of increased conflict by this summer. And I'm not talking about wide, full-scale World War III. I'm just talking about a bigger involvement by the United States. It was announced yesterday that we're sending another $300 million in military aid to Ukraine. It's every few weeks. Ukraine is basically, they're running out of munitions, and they have less munitions now than they did before because Russia has struck a couple of munitions sites, depot sites in Ukraine. And I was reading yesterday that NATO is pretty upset because apparently Ukraine had been stockpiling a lot of the munitions that NATO was sending it. And they were stockpiling it in just 2 to 3 different locations, and Russia found out about it and destroyed some of that. And so now all of these munitions that NATO's been sending for their big offensive that they're planning, apparently Ukraine was dumb and all stockpiled it in 1 or 2 locations that made easy targets for Russia. So it's constant escalation to something. We're constantly seeing different reports of casualties that make no sense. One day we'll see a report that Russia's lost a lot of people, and then the next day we'll see a report where Ukraine has actually lost a lot, not Russia, and it's back and forth. There's so much misinformation in this conflict over there that it's hard to keep up on what's going on. And I'm sure that's all for a purpose. They want to keep you distracted enough so that they can do what they're doing, which is probably has to do with some kind of biolabs and nuclear technology and who knows what else. We're probably going to see it, though. China's increasing their conscriptions. They're drafting a lot of men over there in China to get their troop size up to where they want it to be. Russia's been doing the same thing. America, we've been complaining about the fact that our recruitment's down, and we got to recruit more. So now they're doing all kinds of ads to recruit transgender and drag queens because they make great soldiers, right? If it wasn't so serious, it would almost all look like a really sad comedy skit when you step back and look at it. But it's real, and it's going to affect us. It has been, but it's going to affect us greater. And when we look at the economic status of us, of what we've got banks collapsing, we've got dollar losing its prowess. We've got the debt ceiling where the United States could actually run out of money. I think I was reading yesterday, just in the last couple of days, the Treasury Department has gone through something like $87 billion has been drained out of the Treasury in just a couple of days. It's at very low levels right now because we've hit our debt ceiling, or very nearly. All of this combined, and then a big war, could spell a big disaster for the United States. It's already, there's been experts saying that. The current status of the economy, coupled with a major large-scale war, would be devastating. We need to get ready for that. You need to get ready for massive shortages, restrictions upon your liberty, because that always happens in large-scale wars. And this one, it'll probably be much bigger. And then just more chaos and more uncertainty because of us being involved in a big war. And that's not even including the possibility of here at our homeland, us being attacked, especially considering the thousands of illegal Chinese military-aged males that have been pouring across the United States border over the past year or so. That one's got to happen and be part of this somehow, because China doesn't just let people, their own citizens, leave China when they want. It's not that easy to leave China if you're over there. And if China is planning for a war, why would they be allowing all of these military-aged males to sneak out of China into the United States? So I think that there's definitely something planning there. We have to get ready. We have to be ready for this, because I think it's going to it's going to catch us off guard. I don't think Americans in general have any clue of what this means for our nation and how it's going to affect us. So you need to not be some of those regular Americans. You need to be prepared, stocking up, and then just general readiness, because the war drums are beaten, and they've been beaten for a while, and they're getting closer and closer. And at some point, it just seems that right now, that it's inevitable. At some point, something's going to pop off bigger than it is already. And America will find itself in the middle of a very large and devastating world war. It's time to get your houses in order, folks, and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.